gonna do me. I feel elated, so elevated. I'm just doing my...
Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander, and I am, as always, honored and excited to get to host another fabulous Power to Fly Chat and Learn event. Now, before we dive in and kind of get into the meat and potatoes of today's event, I just want to say hi and welcome to everyone. We're going to go over some quick housekeeping items, and this will be especially helpful if this is your first Power to Fly event. And if that's the case, then hi, welcome. Welcome, we're so happy to meet you. Now, the love is no less real for my frequent flyers there. I love seeing our familiar names and faces in the chat, so welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Now, the big thing to know, whether this is your first Power to Fly event or your 500th, is that participation is key. So we want to encourage you to do that in a number of different capacities. You are always welcome to turn your cameras on if you'd like to share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. But there is no need to be Instagram perfect, okay, y'all? Just because I got fancy and washed my hair does not mean that you cannot bring your messy buns, your furry coworkers, whatever you've got going on. We just want to meet you where you are. Whether you are coming to us from a corner office or your living room couch makes no difference to us. Now, if you still want to participate, but you don't want to do so with your camera, that's completely fine. It's not required. So if you want to, you're welcome to chime in the chat. I see we've got people sharing in there where they're joining us from. So I'd love to see how far our global audience spreads. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that belonged to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So if you'd like to let us know where you're coming from, or if you know whose land you're on. Now, I'm starting to see people in the chat. We've got Staten Island, we've got San Diego, California, we've got Manhattan, Panama, Mexico, Conyers, Georgia, Chicago, Illinois, Boston, Philly, Puerto Vallarta, Washington, North Carolina, Georgia, California. Oh my word, I'm loving this. Ooh, land of the Kumeyaay. Thank you so much, Tony, for sharing that. Thank you, y'all. I love seeing that. All right, so a couple other things to know. We are recording today. What that means is that you don't have to take notes. You get to sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation that I'm about to be having with Helen. Now, we are live streaming to YouTube right now. Hi, YouTube. And then we will be posting this recording both on our YouTube channel by end of day today, and then the recording will be posted on Power to Fly probably within the next couple days. Now, everybody that registered for today's event, whether you're able to make it or not, hi from the past, everybody is going to get an email from Power to Fly in about 4 to 5 business days. That's going to have a link to where you can rewatch this recording when it's posted on the website. Like I said, you can check it out on the YouTube channel as well. I'll be sharing links for all of this as we go. You can check it out on the YouTube channel. The recording will be posted there sooner. But one thing that I like to highlight is that, the YouTube channel has some great stuff. A lot of our kind of best of greatest hits videos live there. But the website is where the true resource bank lies. That is really where you can get more information about these companies. There's really great resources for you, as well as tons and tons and tons of other videos. All of our archives live on our website as well. So I very much encourage you to check that out on powerfly.com. Now, also, as we're going through, I encourage y'all to write questions in the chat. We're going to address some of the questions that you wrote in at registration. But if you are here and you took time out of your day to be here with Power to Fly and Tanagui LLC, we want to make sure that that time is worth it. So if you have questions, please let us know. Let me know. That way I can make sure that we get you answers today. Ask early, ask often. That is the best way to make sure that we are able to get to your question today as well. One thing before we move on into the rest of the event, I do just want to quickly highlight our code of conduct. You can see it here. Basically what it boils down to is just don't be a jerk, okay? All we ask is that as you are interacting with your fellow attendees, that you are operating from a place of kindness and respect. If you have any questions on that, please feel free to let me know. You can DM me in the chat as well. Oh, and if you have a question that you'd like me to ask, but you want to be kept anonymous, no worries. Just DM your question to me, Meg Alexander. You can find me in the drop-down menu. Just DM it to me, and I'm happy to ask and keep you anonymous. All right. Now, I did mention briefly, but our guest, Helen Sanchez, is here on behalf of Tanagui LLC. Now, I'll give you a little bit of Helen's background in a moment, but Tanagui LLC is a career and management consultancy. Helen specializes in career services for women 40 and over. And there's some amazing resources on their website. So I absolutely, oh, there we go. Absolutely recommend you check that out. There's a QR code on the bottom of the slide in front of you. All right. Now, Helen Sanchez, like I said, is the founder of Tanagui Career Consultants. Now, she has amassed over 30 years of experience in recruiting and is a proud member of the Phi Beta Kappa Society with a background in women's and gender studies, as well as African American studies. Now, additionally, Helen is a certified coach graduate of the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, or IPEC. Helen has been motivated by her own workplace experiences. She specializes in working with women 40 and over, aiming to equip them with the necessary tools to navigate challenges in the workplace. Now, recognized for her advocacy, Helen was honored with the Alice Paul Award for Activism and is a distinguished member of the Honor Society in Women and Gender Studies. When Helen's not assisting candidates or developing job search resources, she enjoys spending time with her children, grandchildren, and furry children, also making time to indulge in her love for reading and photography. Helen, welcome to the stage yet again. I love, love, love getting to host you. Is there anything else you would like our audience members to know about you today?
I think that the only updates I have that you didn't mention, Meg, because I haven't seen you in a while, I did start a newsletter on LinkedIn for those who are interested with information on addressing ageism issues. So the first issue I just released, actually. So that's there. And also on the website, they'll find information about the course I facilitate, which we're actually starting another session in June on building your legacy season. And basically, as I say, just determining what you want to be when you grow up and then figuring out how to do it. Since everybody's going to be living longer and living healthier, they need to be planning further out. So that's all on the website.
I love this. I mean, I'm within I'm within spitting distance of needing your services as well, or qualifying for services. And so I think this is very, very prescient knowledge. And also, like, do you have to grow up? Couldn't we just like plan what I want to do like when I'm older? Because like I don't think I'm going to do much growing up past this.
Oh, well, I have many years on you, Meg, and I'm still working on that. So I agree.
Oh, good. All right. I feel like I'm in much better hands then. All right. Okay, so we have some great questions that we're going to try and get to today. But again, I just want to highlight for y'all, if you are in the audience today and you have questions, anything that occurs to you, please feel free to ask those in the chat. I'll be grabbing all of the questions as we go, and we'll keep moving. So please feel free, make the most of this time today with Helen. All right, let's get us started here. One of the first questions that a lot of people ask is, if you are job searching and you are over a certain age, a lot of candidates are worried about how to effectively convey that you can teach an old dog new tricks. So when people are trying to make that clear in an interview session, how can we clarify for interviewers that, you know, having to learn something new should not be a deterrent to you hiring me for this position?
Well, I think number one, you should reflect on your resume, whatever updated skills in your industry, in your field, whatever you do, you should know what's the latest and greatest that needs to be addressed, needs to be handled, needs to be something you're comfortable with. So you should, I mean, there's so many options online for you to learn something or update or get a certification if that's what you need. And that should all be reflected on your resume, that you've done these things with whatever programs are necessary and in recent time. The other thing is, when you're interviewing, what you really should be able to do is to reference back, and as everyone that you listen to, I'm sure, says, we all need to be storytellers today. But basically, we've always needed to be storytellers, because when you go into an interview, you need to reference your achievements, your skills, whatever it is, with a story for the important ones, for the successes, with a story so that it's memorable and they're going to remember you when you leave because of that story. So it's the same thing if you want to talk about, well, there's so much new for you to learn. How are you going to do that? Well, then you're going to talk about another time in your past experience, whether it's reflected on your resume or not. Because if you're going 10 to 15 years and it happened 20 years ago, okay, you still did it. You still achieved it. So you want to reflect that there was a time when I either had to take a project on, had to address maybe team lead, had to take care of something where I had to learn a new process, a new skill, whatever it is. And, I was ahead of the timeline, and I was very successful in implementing the transition. So you need to give them something specific that you've done, that you've achieved. And so you're very comfortable being a lifelong learner, because that's wonderful. And these are the examples of when I did it and did it well.
Do you think that it's more or less beneficial to show like a pattern of learning new things, to get, to kind of set a consistent like arc for that up for like a story, even if it's not necessarily skills that are like prescient for the job now? Like just to kind of demonstrate, like, yeah, I've been upgrading my skills over the course of my career. When I was in this field, this is how I did it. But obviously, like, you can tell that I have been a continuous learner. Do you think that would be at all helpful? Because I'm thinking about people that are either returning, coming back to the workforce, or they might have to pivot, but they might not have, a history of, what am I trying to think of? A history of upskilling and continuous education in the exact field or on the exact things that they want to do immediately. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I understand what you're saying. I mean, if someone is pivoting or changing industry or going to something they haven't done before, yes, it's very good for them to highlight when they've had to learn skills or programs or processes that wherever it is. So, and if they've come from a career gap. The thing is that people never acknowledge how much experience and how much skill they have and how they got there. Or they tend not to. They tend to underestimate themselves. So they need to kind of take inventory when they're doing their resume and when they're going for an interview about everything they've done and what they've learned from it. And some of those skills you'll find are what, again, the name is transferable skills that you're going to want to put on your resume. Soft skills are very important today. Were you good at communication, a team lead? Did you coordinate all the parents on a class trip in school when you were on your parenting gap? Because if you did, that's an amazing thing that you've done, because negotiating with a lot of parents, amazing. So of course, you're not going to put it that way, but you need to represent that that's a transferable skill that you have, that you've done it, that you've been there, done that, and you can do it. And it's the same thing with learning. If you've upgraded your skills, if you've taken the time to learn something pertaining to the change you want to make, but haven't implemented it yet, then yes, you want to represent that you've taken that step.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let's keep going to our other questions. Okay, this one is a very popular question. How should people handle job applications that require listing graduation dates? We know that there has been, at least recently, a move away from asking these kinds of things or requiring there to be a graduation year. But, in places where you're trying to apply for an ATS, like via ATS or applicant tracking service, and it's just not an option to not complete that section. What do you recommend people do? Is it better to be upfront and like, oh yeah, like, I'm 57 years old, here you go? Or do you think that it's better to kind of do yourself the favor and find a way around this?
Well, one of the things that in some instances will work on applications or on LinkedIn is to use 9999 in the year. So you can try that. If it doesn't work, then you have to make the decision. If you can't get through without putting it in and the 9999 doesn't work, then again, you have to make the decision and go with it. But if there's any way around it, then you should go around it. You really should, sad to say, but the burden of getting the job and showing that you're not whatever age you are, or sadly it falls on us, the applicant, not on the company. They have their mindset, whoever you're talking to. So you need to take that responsibility and not make it really easy in all aspects of the application, in your resume, in the way you present yourself, which I know we're going to cover some of that other information later, but all aspects, you should not make it so easy for them to know, because people do make judgments. Unfortunately, the model that we have in society, which has to change and will change slowly and has started to a bit, is that the elderly employees are not as pliable, as flexible, as this, as that. They actually are more loyal, more responsible, more flexible usually than younger employees even. So the image has to change, but you definitely can't make it easy for them to understand your age, and because you don't know either what this person's idea, what their judgment is going to be just with a number.
Oh
So you
yeah,
have
of
no
course.
point.
We are getting a lot of messages in the chat. One of them talking about how Power to Fly does request graduation dates on our candidate info page. You're absolutely right, but I'm going to check with IT because as far as I'm aware, I don't think that part of it is mandatory, but I'll double check because it's been a couple months since I looked at it. A lot of people are also saying like some applications ask if you're over 40 years old. I have seen a couple of these, but most of what I've seen when they ask that is because they have like a returnship or like a experienced hire program that is more geared towards people, either if you need that like re-entry into the workforce. Sometimes some companies do it because there's like a buddy system that they do to make sure that like you're not kind of falling through the cracks of, you know, not fitting the mold of like the fresh young whippersnapper who's like working in the mailroom. So I think that is really important to talk about. Melina's also asking, isn't it against our age or against the law to ask our age? As far as I'm aware, it's not against, they're not supposed to ask, but you don't have to answer, I believe, is how that goes. Helen, do you have any insight
Right,
on that?
and it depends on the state.
Yeah.
And it also depends on the result. If they asked, you answered, and you didn't get the job, and you had documentation or were sure that, again, with documentation, because again, the burden falls on you to implement your protected status under the Age Discrimination Employment Act. So you have to have some kind of proof. But if you knew that that's why you didn't get the job, then yes, absolutely, that's illegal. But it again, it depends on the state about asking the question, and major companies can be incorporated in a state that allows it, and although they have to adhere to the local state's laws, but companies will always find a way to find out what they want to find out. So they can use all the excuses about wanting to mentor you with someone appropriate or wanting to put you in the right role. But I would say that if that's not a mandatory question, which I would hope it isn't, then I would just skip that question.
I don't know if you've been in this position before, but especially want to open the floor up to anybody else that might have experienced this. Have you ever been asked that or had a pointed question around age in an in-person interview? Because I feel like that's something that would feel a bit odd to respond to in the moment. I know a couple, like some of my mom's friends have done, but I'm interested to hear from you if you have experienced this or what you recommend people do.
No, I have not experienced it, but what I usually recommend is to redirect the conversation. So if they ask you, then you need to talk about redirect it to, and especially this is where the research that you need to do before you go on an interview about the company, about their mission statement, about what they need, about what's going on with them in the news that might apply to your background, so that you can redirect the conversation to my 10 years of experience brings to the table XYZ, which is really what I think can make a significant contribution to your team, so that you're taking them away from a specific age. The other two options are, again, trying to redirect them, and then if they press forward, answering them. And then honestly, and I know this is very difficult when you're looking for a job, but do you want to work somewhere where they're going to press you for it, and not adhere to what really is, in some cases legalities, and in some cases just corporate philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, this touches on something that we absolutely talk about a lot in these chats, which is you are interviewing the company just as much as they are interviewing you.
Yeah.
So it is really important to ask the questions that really matter to you. Things that would be potential deal breakers or would be something that would like absolutely put, this company like much more high in your favor or something. Because you can ask all the questions you want. You may or may not really get answers, but ask the questions that mean something to you and then listen to how they give you those answers, right? If you ask about like programs for returnships or programs for older workers or development of older workers, and they are like, no, we actually don't have anything like that. But if you're interested, like that could be something that you could spearhead if you join the team, blah, blah, blah. Or are you asking about this? And they're like, no, and we kind of wish you wouldn't ask. So let's go to the next question. What else would you like to know? You know what I mean? Like pay attention to like how that is done.
Absolutely. I mean, you can along the same lines, questions about mentorship programs, because that's always beneficial for both sides. If you have a younger uh, uh, partner, you're having two totally different perspectives, and so everyone benefits from it. And it's the same thing, cross-generational teams. Do they advocate, or do they have, or employee resource groups? What groups do they have? So you can ask all those questions and see what the answers are to evaluate your interest.
All right. Sorry, trying to do multitask and do multiple things. And thank you, y'all, people sending in questions in the chat. I'm grabbing all of these so that way we can make sure that we get to as many as possible today. Okay, this one, people wanted to know if there are any industries or job roles that you think are more open to older applicants. I really like this question, and I think it's going to be a big it depends, but let's hear what the expert has to say.
Well, it's very simple to talk about industries that are geared toward younger people, like technology, like advertising, like media marketing. For example, in technology and IT, the average employee age is 30, which is the lowest of any industry. But the way I think to find out companies specifically and industries that embrace older employees is to look at two things: to Google returnships, because if the company, even if you're working and looking for another job, so you're not eligible for a returnship program, if the company has a returnship program, they obviously embrace older employees. They understand the value and they understand the benefit. So then you can take the names of all of those companies that pop up with your search and look at their career pages. And the same thing, there's a site called the Age Friendly Institute, which has a program called CAFE, which is Certified Age Friendly Employers. Again, you're going to their site and looking for that list of companies. They don't have jobs, they just have a list of companies, and then you go look at the career pages. So I think it's really, you have to look at it as identifying and targeting companies that embrace older employees, not necessarily being able to identify industries or and you'll see in the industries, I mean, obviously, a lot of the returnship programs, there's a lot in softwares and in financial and banking, and a lot of those companies have returnship programs. So those, obviously, those industries are prone to it, but there are many others now. There's so many. I mean, when we talked returnship programs a few years ago, there were just a handful. There's more now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There's a lot of people saying stuff about how, like, the internet is forever, so companies will find out certain things if they want to. I think that that's absolutely accurate as well. So, not necessarily treating your age like a big secret, but like if they're going to make a big deal out of it, let them make a big deal out of it, I guess. Like, because you don't want to like cause a problem where there isn't one, right? You don't want to say like, well, I don't want this to be a problem. And it's like, well, maybe they wouldn't have even thought that. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. You never want to approach anything in an interview from a negative perspective, whether you had a negative experience, whether you had a negative result. You don't want to ideally address those, but if you do, there needs to be a positive outcome. And today, because of technology and social media and everything, we really do have to think about how we brand ourselves. And so we need to look at what we have posted and do we want it there. And I understand some things are forever on the internet, but you have control and can manage some of that. So because it's not uncommon for a recruiter absolutely to go on LinkedIn, or for some to go on Facebook and see what they find, or Instagram. So you really should try to manage how you're being branded.
Yeah, I like that. All right, let's keep moving on questions here. Okay, a lot of people are asking for things like specific orgs or specific companies that work with Power to Fly that are, really great for these things. I know we've got blog posts on this, so I'm going to try and grab some of those links from the chat, or sorry, from the website, so I can share them with y'all in the chat. So keep your eyes peeled there. Let's see. Okay, Susan had a really good question. Do you find that ageism is more biased or more happens more frequently based on gender?
Oh, yes. That
I
would
don't think many of us in the room are going to be surprised by this, unfortunately.
statistically more women have issues recorded and under the ADA applied. So yeah, and also again, society has created the image of women that they, that theoretically everyone should look like and should act like and should be like, and so it's yeah, it's ingrained, and women are definitely, well, when I did my studies, there was a line that's what irritated me more than anything, where they said, and I'm sure many of you probably have heard this, where men age like fine wine and women just age. And it's like, yeah, no, but it's a mindset, and it's definitely women who are 40 and over. And to me, it's absolutely astonishing that you have to start thinking about this at 40, but are considered senior, older. With men, there's a little more leeway because they can be confident and successful. It's just like having families. Men are rewarded for being a father. Women are punished because, well, maybe you're going to get pregnant again, or maybe the children are going to be sick and you're not going to be at work. So it's definitely, it's an intersectionalism. It's genderism, sexism, and ageism. And
Well,
so
it's yet another permutation of judging a book by its cover, right? Which is something that happens all of the time, no matter whether we like it or not, and generally speaking happens to all of us. However, the standards by which women are judged for certain things are vastly different than the standards that men are judged for certain things, right?
Right.
Like aesthetics is much more of a big deal when it comes to women. Yet I know my husband, at least, has never done anything in the morning other than wash everything with 3-in-1 and then go out the door. So, but if I turn up to work, not here necessarily, but like without mascara, everybody asks if you're sick, right? So like the rolling eyes in the comments are killing me right now. Thank you so much, y'all. I can't tell you how much I love seeing people like showing up in the comments. So thank you. Or in the video, I mean, but like truly I don't think a lot of us are surprised here.
It's as if you hear anyone speak on a podcast or in a blog, as women get older, as they continue getting older, they become invisible. It's like they don't even notice you anymore. So you kind of have to nicely, always politely be in their face and always politely show them how much value that age brought to you and how important it is for them. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Do you think that there is a specific age or age range that this starts to happen more and more? I mean, I think from what I've seen, it mostly depends on the industry. But do you think that there's a core age of like, oh yeah, by the time you're 50, you'll absolutely be experiencing this?
Oh, definitely in the 50s.
Yeah.
Definitely in the 50s. Again, it astonishes me that in some industries, women in their 40s, they would be considered older employees in some industries, in advertising or, again, media and entertainment. Obviously, we see that all the time, and technology, IT, Silicon Valley kind of people. But yeah, it's definitely in the 50s that I think women start to experience it more. And I think what's so important, because I don't know, like my last job that I got, that I left to do this, I got when I was 60. So I know what it's like to go out and get jobs in your 50s and 60 and be working into your 70s. But I think so much of it is in your mind. Like, do you think you're old? Because if you do, right away, you need to get past that. You just need to not go there, because you're not. And so I think a lot of it is your confidence and you understanding your value, because again, especially women always underestimate. They do everything. They take care of the kids, they clean the house, they go to work, and everybody just expects them to do it, and they do it. And so they don't think about how much is involved in all of that. And so you need to take that inventory I mentioned and make sure that you understand how much you bring to the table, how valuable that is, and then, have that confidence that goes with it, understanding how important you are.
Yeah. I like this way to approach it because like one of the things Chris had said in the chat is that it seems to be part of the stigma is a perception that someone in their 40s in a contributor role, 40s or 50s, means that maybe they're not in management or they're not very capable. But I think that also we are seeing more of this idea of like, okay, advancing in your career doesn't just look like climbing the ladder. Not everybody wants to get into management and not everybody has to or should.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, like, do you think that preconceived, bias or like unconscious bias is playing into that at all?
Yes, I agree it is. And the double-edged sword there is that women are so often denied opportunities that they'll have the same background or the same education as the man, but he goes to the golf club with his buddies and she doesn't. And so she's not as good a candidate as he is. And you can see that in the statistics and the numbers of women that are in upper level management roles or CEO positions compared to the percentage of the population. It's crazy how small the representation is. And it's
Yeah.
not always through choice. Sometimes, yes, it's someone who says, I like what I'm doing and that's what I want to do. Had someone who worked for me who did that and that all good. Um, but there are plenty of women who would be happy to step in that role and then aren't given the opportunity.
Yeah, I like this. We've got people asking excellent questions in the chat about like how to embrace the negatives, how to kind of own that idea of, yeah, I'm 40 plus, like who cares? Let's see here. Okay, Bill had a really good question. Are there any trade-offs to de-aging a resume? Like relevant experience drops off, but there are fewer indicators as to age or desired pay. What do you recommend? And does de-aging on LinkedIn and resumes work in real life?
I always recommend on resumes, I recommend number one, a classic format so it doesn't get stuck in the applicant tracking system because they don't like columns. Applicant tracking systems read top to bottom, left to right. And so it should be a classic format. Your font should be between 10 and 12. You should have, to de-age your resume, you should have your name, your city, state, zip code, your cell phone, your email, and your LinkedIn URL. Then you should have professional summary, not objective. Then should have ideally 10 to 15 years. If you've been somewhere more than 15 years, try to show a progression of growth within that experience. If you have experience prior to the 15 years, that's separate, but so you don't have to add it, but you want to represent something about it. There are two ways. You can either put it in the summary or in skills or experience because you've done it. It's not that you never ever misrepresent what you've done and what the truth is, but you can put it in skills or experience, and then if the question comes up at an interview, well, I see you did this, when did you do that? You can say I did it in previous experience and it again came up very successful. You should try to put quantifiable results in some of your resume because that's a big deal today. If I created a process that increased customer engagement by 20%. It should say 20%, not just I increased customer engagement, at least in a few places on your resume. It shouldn't exceed 2 pages, and there should be no dates for your education. You should remember your soft skills and any professional skills or achievements or certifications should be there. So that's the resume. And as far as the interview, again, you can also, if you are not comfortable just putting it in your experience and you want it represented, you can go to additional professional experience under your chronological experience. And I had a client who did this because she was at IBM and we wanted to put IBM on there. So we put IBM and what she did in a little summary and then no dates. So that would cover it also.
I like that. Okay. Let's see, we've got really good questions and lots of good comments coming into the chat thread, y'all. Thank you so much. I love seeing so much activity in the chat. Let's see here. All right, next question. What are some positive approaches? Oh no, we did that one already. Okay, let's talk about being perceived as overqualified or underqualified. This is a double-edged sword, right? If strictly based on age, a lot of people are going to assume overqualified, but if you're pivoting into something else, then it's like they don't understand why you don't have, like, all of the years of experience for this. So like now they think you're not qualified. How would you handle this perception, one way or the other?
Well, if it's overqualified, I think that you definitely need to address your up-to-date skills. You can, again, you need to go into an interview and understand who's interviewing you. Is it a recruiter? Is it a hiring manager? Is it the CEO? Who are you interviewing with? And you need to read them. As you said earlier, they need to ask questions and listen. Listening is so important because you can understand a person much better. So you could say something to them that that too much experience is never a negative, depending on the person, as a light statement. But discussing your up-to-date skills, explaining that you're a seasoned professional, bringing your problem-solving abilities to their organization, that what that provides usually is a shorter learning curve. The goal of any recruiter or any hiring manager is to fill the job that they have open with the most suitable person who's going to have the shortest learning curve to get the job done and easier for them. So you can talk about the fact that if it's an overqualified, that it's a shorter learning curve because you have all that experience that applies to what they're doing. Again, sadly, we think that when I searched for jobs many years ago, you'd go to the library, you'd look for a book, you'd look for an article. We have the computer in front of us, so we think, oh, we have everything now. But it's all time consuming. It takes a lot of time. If you're going for an interview, you should have researched that company, and that does take time. And again, read their mission statement, read their issues, whatever. Maybe they're launching a new product, and that's why they're hiring. Who knows? But whatever you find out, you have to apply your background and experience to that so that you can show it to them at the interview. You also have to tell them, that helps you to tell them why you are so excited about their job, why you're passionate about what they're doing, why you love their mission statement, that you think what they're saying is so important, and you want to make a significant contribution. So with your experience, you can highlight all of those. On underqualified, again, you have to then point out either if you've taken some skill certifications or courses or whatever it may be relative to what that job is. Again, you have to impact them with how excited you are about the job, and why. Why do you want that job? Because you applied for that job, so you must want the job. So why do you want that job? Because if you could share that, that might be something that they'll acknowledge. But you need to show them that work is what you want to do, and either with examples. I mean, maybe you volunteer doing some of that work at some point, and you can say, I did some volunteer work. I experienced it mildly and I love it, and this is what I want to do, and I can make a significant contribution. And as far as learning, again, you can reference, did I learn before, and how easily it was for me to learn, that I'm a lifelong learner, that I think it's so important for us to continue learning, and your flexibility and adaptability. You can also talk about if you sense that the culture is an issue, that the native digital native and all of that portends that it's a younger company. You can talk about the cross-generational teams, how studies have shown that they're more successful, that they're more productive. And you can talk about mentor programs and how successful those are when there's input from really different generations. So yeah, so you really have to practice. You have to be good at responding to those questions and those situations, and doing it again with the storyteller type of mode. But you have to impart your enthusiasm for it.
Yeah. I mean, this is situations where I would ask things like, oh, is there a reason that there's nobody over 50 on this team? Like, do they move up into management? Do y'all develop them into other parts of the company? Like, is there a reason for that? Because like, that's a lot easier than saying, here's why I deserve to be on this team, even though I don't fit the culture of what's there, because that's the thing, right? We don't want to talk about culture fits. We want to talk about culture adds and how you can fill a culture gap. Because then it, kind of puts more of that onus on the employer to, kind of step up and here's why the team looks the way it does so far. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
important, unfortunately, again, how we present ourselves. Because if you're 60 and you walk in with that mindset again, oh my God, I'm 60 and I'm tired, it's not going to work. So sadly, when you talk about the onus is on you to present yourself with a high energy, passion about what you're pursuing, why, just a message that says, for example, studies have shown that women tend to sit on the front end of their seat, and which is, their lack of confidence and indecision, where men will sit back and relax at an interview because they're so sure that they're good for that job and they can get it. It's like men will apply for a job where they have 60% of the skills that are required, and women look and go, I can't do that job. Oh, you'd be surprised, because job descriptions themselves are deceptive. But what you can do is video yourself on your phone and then critique yourself. Get a friend or a family member to interview you, dress for an interview, get on the phone. And when it's over, ask that person for feedback on how you performed, and look at yourself. Would you hire you? That's the question.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I very much also second the recording yourself to see what you actually look like on camera. And like, it can also help you. Like, I play with my stupid hair all of the time, so it can try and help you like not do that when you're trying to, and as somebody that records videos a lot, put on shoes when you're doing this. Psychologically, your brain kind of puts itself in a different mode. Like it's more like ready to go, kind of active work, whatever. So try putting on shoes. That has worked really well for me.
Well,
There's
also, if you're doing phone interview or Zoom, same thing. Dress for an interview.
Yeah.
Because it's a mindset. Yes.
Yeah, I like that. Lots of people talking about things like formatting, and like, ways to make sure that you're not aging yourself when it comes to like communications. One of the things mentioned specifically is to take out the double space at the end of periods or end of sentences.
Yeah.
This was beaten into me in law school, so it is hard for me to not to like stop doing this. But yeah, it's one of those weird things that like you wouldn't necessarily think right off the bat, like, oh yeah, that is kind of an older thing, isn't it? Like putting your phone number on a resume, or your address. Address used to be a thing that you put on your resume a lot.
Yeah, no more. Yeah, no more. It immediately dates you. It's like the objective. It's like red lights flashing.
Yes, yes. Let's see here. We've got about a little under 15 minutes left. So if you guys have questions, please feel free to submit or to send those in. I'm trying to get to as many as we can here. Let's see. Okay, let's talk about how to address gaps in employment. There are a lot of times where people will have a gap in employment. COVID was a major one for a lot of people. Caregiving is another big one. Regardless of what the reason is for that break, how do you suggest people talk about that break or discuss like if they have a gap in their resume in an interview?
Well, first, I think you have to represent the gap on your resume, but you do not have to share detailed personal information. All you have to do is you can say parenting gap or caregiver gap or educational gap, whatever it may be. But again, the thing that we forget is that whatever we did, if we were a caregiver, maybe we had to document medical bills, maybe we had to negotiate, maybe we had to make appointments 7 days a week. Whatever it is, you need to sit down with a blank piece of paper and you need to write what you did during that time. Maybe to maintain your sanity, you went back to school or you volunteered. So you need to write everything you've done during whatever period of time it is, a year, 2 years, whatever, everything you've done. And then next to it, write all the skills that you used when you did it. Again, I always use parenting because I just think working with school parents is quite challenging. So having had children. So did you plan class events? Did you do fundraising? Did you coordinate fundraiser events? Whatever it is, you need to document all of that next to whatever you've done. Again, if it's caregiving, were you responsible for medication? Were you responsible for, there's time management, there's communication, there's so many things involved with caregiving. So you need to list those. Then you need to look at, and you can Google the transferable skills. You need to look at how those skills relate to business, to the business world, to what you're trying to do, what job you're going after. You need to say, again, independent worker, communication, good time management, collaboration, team lead, whatever it is. Identify it that way, put it on your skills section on your resume, and talk about it. If you're in an interview, talk about did you have problem solving that you had to again, caregiver, probably a lot of problem solving. Were you in a leader role for the PTA? Whatever it is, talk about it and feel free to talk about it, but talk about it from the perspective. You need to remember when you're in an interview, their only interest is what you're going to do for them, not what you've done that doesn't relate, or what you want to do, but what they want you to do. So you need to relate it to, okay, maybe I had excellent time management skills, and maybe that's part of the job description, good time management. So tell them. So I think that's the way that you have to manage a gap.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's see. Oh, Ava had a really good question in the chat here. Hold on, let me get back to it. Ava had said, I have some certifications that have expired. Can I still put those on my resume, or should I retake? So I asked a couple clarifying questions here because I wasn't sure exactly what we're talking about. So it looks like what Ava is specifically describing is requirements of maintaining how many credits within a few years. And that specifically for their position, they moved into management and then let those certifications lapse. Is that something that you should list? Is it worse to list that you don't have it anymore? Should you list it to indicate that you did, pursue this and you'd be willing to re-up it? What do you suggest for people if they have certifications but they have expired, as it were?
I think it's kind of relevant to what job you're trying to get. If, for example, you're applying for a job where that certification is going to be required and you've had it in the past and you've achieved that, then it's pretty relevant and important that, okay, maybe it's not active, but you did it, so you can do it again. So I think that if it's relevant to the job that you're seeking, then you should put it. I would not necessarily, I wouldn't put the dates. I would just put it's part of your history. So under education or under certifications, you would list it and not put expired or dates. That's a part of the conversation. On your resume, your goal is to get your foot in the door and get an opportunity to be in someone's face. And so it's there. And you can certainly, again, always need to be honest and say, that has expired, but I know that, it's not going to be a problem for me again to once again re-up it. And if it's something very specific and you can do it while you're job hunting, then you should do that. Or if you're in a job and there's a way that you can fit it in, then you again should do that. But either way, if it's relevant to the job you're looking for, then it should be on there.
Okay, I like that. We do have people that are asking if there are certain states that are more accepting of older individuals. A lot of people are mentioning how Silicon Valley is much younger friendly, and that is absolutely true. But again, this is a great place or a great time to say, like, hey, is there a reason there's nobody over 50 on this team? Like, have you guys, has everybody aged out of this or something? Like, I noticed you don't have any team members like this. That would be a gap that I'd very much be able to fill because here's the experience I bring. And keep in mind, all of the ignorant young whippersnappers, like, you have experience that they cannot get. They can't go over, they can't go home on the weekend and, crunch and take 14 different skills assessments and, get certifications or whatever in years of experience. Like, you have that up on us. So very, very important. Do you think there are any states that you've seen more or less, traction when it comes to older workers?
I think number one, you're very correct on not getting, like, you have to amplify that, your experience for example, older employees always have more experience at problem solving than young people, and they have a different perspective, a broader perspective, because they've probably gone through it so many times. But I'm not aware of any states. It's industry. It's really, again, entertainment industry. Startups were notoriously young people. I'm not sure if that's changing a bit, but primarily it was. But again, entertainment, media, technology, that was all young people. Fashion, obviously, although there's a lot of older women now involved in fashion. So some of those things are changing. But I'm not aware of any states that specifically go one way or the other.
Okay. All right, good to know. Melina's chiming in that startups want all the young whippersnappers. Maybe, but honestly, like if you have a bunch of ignorant young whippersnappers and they're the only ones in charge, that startup might not be that successful, right? You need people who have been around for more than 30 years on the planet, 20 years on the planet, to make sure that we're not all going full founding fathers, shall we say, and 26-year-olds creating the stuff we're going to live by for the rest of our lives.
Right. And again, just if you're reaching out to someone who's in that role, explaining that, you again, do your research. There are studies that show that those cross-generational teams, that true perspective from each side makes for much more success and more productivity. So it's to their benefit. But you have to study that stuff so that you can talk it when you're out. So, yeah. But I agree, his whippersnappers are agreed there.
Yes. Let's see here. Okay, let's say if you're on the other side of this, if you are either in a team that maybe is not necessarily creating an inclusive or supportive work culture, or if you are part of a company trying to make sure that your work culture is more inclusive, how do you think people can go about doing this? Like, you want to make sure that you are valuing contributions from people of all ages, not just based on like years of seniority, which totally valuable, but just because you've been somewhere for 7 years doesn't necessarily mean that you know more than somebody else who just joined. What do you think people can do on their own, or within an org setup, to encourage that supportive environment for older workers?
I think it's there are a few things that you can do. One is, if you're in an environment where someone is making even microaggression statements, where they're making comments that are inappropriate, the first thing to do is not let them do it without acknowledging. If you turn around, if you're in a group and they say something about, oh, you're really slow or whatever, you can turn around and say, excuse me, I don't think I heard what you said. And once you put the spotlight on them, they're not so quick to do it again, or they become embarrassed at their own behavior. So hopefully that would work. Another thing, of course, you can go to HR. But as far as if you feel that you're in a role where you've been overlooked, you need to document that, how you have perfect performance reviews for 10 years, and yet you can't get that promotion. And also maybe an employee resource group. If they don't have one, maybe they can create one. Another thing you can suggest is a mentoring program. Or another thing is the cross-generational teams, that maybe they have an abundance of employees that are of all age groups, but do you put them together so that they can share their information? So if you spearhead any of those, then you make a contribution to a change in mindset, because sometimes you'll have older people who have preset ideas of what younger people are, and you'll have younger people who have preset ideas about older people. So put them together and they find out that, guess what, we're both pretty good. So yeah, I think those are important.
Yes, I like this a lot. There's a lot of people, chiming in about some of the things that they say in response to comments like this, kind of microaggressions, all kinds of stuff. So thank you all for sharing those. The other thing that I got to tell you is one of my favorite things is, if anybody makes a comment about age, I will tell them that I'm 57 and don't I look great for my age? Because if you truly because here's the thing, if you treat it like as trivial a question as it is, or as trivial a thing to talk about as it is, it helps to set that expectation of okay, but why do you think it's such a big deal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good
All
one.
right.
That
We have
one.
less than 5 minutes. If people are only going to take one thing from today's event, thank you, Melina. That's lovely. It's all a filter from Zoom. Thank you so much. If people are only going to take one thing from today's event, what do you want that one thing that they remember to be?
I want the one thing to be, of course, you can't make me do one. Be prepared and have everything formatted as it should. But the one thing really that is most important is to be confident and to not feel like you're whatever age you are. As a negative, you can feel like you are. I heard a podcast with Ina Garten, and she said that she feels like her 76 years, but she feels good about it because she's just she said she'd like a 25-year-old body, but she still wants her 76 years in her head.
Yes.
Because you have so much to offer. And so, if nothing else, please go home, think about everything you've done, everything that you experienced, and understand how important that is and how valuable you are, and be confident.
Actually, that's a really good call out. I know we got a lot of people, we only got 4 minutes left, but I want to have y'all chime in the comments. What is something that you know how to do, or like an experience that you have and you rely on now that you did not have in your 20s and 30s? Like, what is something that like you only got for, from being a person and existing on the planet?
Right.
This very much goes back to soft skills, right? Like it
Right.
really
And
is.
experiences, being on the planet, and the experiences that you've encountered. We've all had to handle, I mean, something as simple as when one of the children is sick, or when the car breaks down. We've all been through that. And so what did we do? Did we sit there and cry? Did we address it? Did we fix it? Most of us fixed it. So yeah.
I'm loving the comments here, y'all. Joy says, I don't put up with BS. Karen says, I have insight. Sherry Ann says, I found my voice. Wahinde says, patience, negotiating skills from Jacqueline. Wisdom and mature decision-making from Nimesh. More compassion for people from Ava. Big picture thinking. I love this, y'all. Nancy has to be slow to take offense to things. Know how things break. Bill is chiming in, and now that you know how things break, you know how to fix them. I really love these, y'all. These are awesome. Yeah, I think these are great. Like, is there one for you, Helen, that comes to mind?
Um,
I like myself now. I didn't like myself 5, 10, 15
Well,
years
it's
ago.
true. The confidence, definitely the confidence. I mean, I started my career in sales, and so learning to let things roll off my back and understand that it's not me, it's their loss. That was a big one.
Yes.
And
Yes.
sales teams should be trained that way. Never think of it as you did something wrong. It's their loss, because if you're good at what you do, they should have gone with you. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So we are almost at the end of time today, but Helen, thank you so, so much. It's always wonderful to get to chat with you. And I had so much fun doing this for double our normal time. I love
I
this.
know. I know.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. It is incredibly valuable, and we really, really appreciate you doing it.
Well, thank you for your time, and I enjoy interacting with you. And thank you all for taking the time to join us. And I hope you all did get something out of it. So yeah,
Absolutely.
all good.
All right, y'all, as we go to wind down for our event today, again, I just want to say a huge thank you to our audience members. Thank you so, so much for joining us today. I know y'all have a ton of options when it comes to events like today. So we really appreciate you spending time with Power to Fly. Quick reminder, we want to be there for you at every stage of your career. Truly, it does not matter if you are just starting your first internship or you are closing in on your retirement party. We really want to be there for you at every stage of your career. We've got some great resources on our website. They are completely free to use. And those resources are how we feel we're going to keep moving the needle on the mission that really matters to us, right? Like gender equity in the workplace, pay equity. We want to see true representation and belonging and inclusion, as well as accessibility. So if this is something that also, probably a lot of you are also passionate about, we'd really appreciate it. Take a look at our resources, share them with friends, family, whatever. They're completely free to use, and we want to make sure that the more people that have them in hand, the better. If this has been your first Power to Fly event, I sincerely hope it will not be your last. I really encourage you to check out powertofly.com for our resources. We host free virtual events like this. I believe we have one every day, if not multiples. So you can get some awesome content there. You'll see me, I host a bunch of those, so you'll see at least one friendly face. And whether this is your first event, your 500th, again, I really hope y'all had a great time today. You learned something, and hopefully you'll join us back again soon for another event. Have a nice day. Go out and have the day that you deserve, and we will see you back here soon.
You too.
Bye.
Enjoy vacation.
Heck yeah.
Feeling good. What you want? Feeling good. What you got?